Much of the intellectual inheritance that spawned National Socialism and Hitler's rise to power is well known. Throughout Europe, the new science of eugenics and its corresponding ideas regarding race, survival and competition were commonly accepted truisms echoed across the political spectrum. Within Germany, belief in the supremacy of the Aryan race, hatred of the Jews, and the dream of creating a new pan-German Reich were commonplace. Yet there remains a less well-known addendum to this familiar tale. It involves an attempt to rediscover the lost cultural and historical heritage of this so-called Aryan master race, to find proof of its origins and re-establish its cultural primacy among the German people. The details of this story are barely believable. The Nazis really did search for the Holy Grail. At the centre of this bizarre story is Heinrich Himmler. The son of a history teacher, Himmler had grown obsessed with a genuinely absurd version of German history. He fantasized about a heroic and genetically pure people, whose culture and history were locked in an apocalyptic death struggle against its enemies. Himmler obsessed with restoring the German people to their ancient pagan roots, with finding evidence of the master race's glorious past. And these were not trivialities. To Himmler, these ideas were a front line in an actual war for future control of the human race. Take for example Thor's hammer. At one stage he ordered his underlings to find it so he could use it as a weapon during World War II. To assist in these endeavours, Hitler created the Ahnenerbe, a disparate collection of scientists, anthropologists, historians and archaeologists. The original head of the organisation was Hermann Werth, who, incidentally, believed that Aryans had originated in the lost island of Atlantis. In fact, the Nazis had already conducted an expedition to find the city in Venezuela, and had made a documentary about it in 1933 called The Search for Atlantis. Yet further expeditions were planned in search of the Aryans' original homeland, to the Canary Islands, to Iran, to Tibet. Accompanying the Tibetan trip was the anthropologist Bruno Berger. Berger spent his time measuring the physical characteristics of the Tibetan people to find traces of Aryan ancestry. He will go on to work in Auschwitz, where he would select 86 men and women who he believed displayed characteristically Jewish features. These people were then gassed, and their skulls prepared for display in Himmler's Jewish skeleton collection. In 1974, Berger received 3 years probation for this. As well as creating the Ahnenerbe, Himmler also promoted men like Karl Maria Willigert to his personal advisory group. Willigert, for his part, was a mystic who believed himself the bearer of an ancient line of German kings. He was also a self-proclaimed expert in ancient rune symbols. Note, these symbols on the SS uniforms are not lightning bolts, but runes taken from an alphabet invented by another Germanic mystic named Guido von List. List claimed the runes were revealed to him during a state of temporary blindness. Anyway, Willigert's major contribution to Himmler's fantasy project was the creation of a 10-point manifesto for the elimination of Christianity from German life. Christianity was, after all, a Jewish invention, and Willigert and Himmler both wished to displace it in favour of their preferred Aryan paganism. Unfortunately, Himmler later discovered that Willigert was a schizophrenic who had spent several years in a mental asylum. He was quietly forced into retirement. Despite each successive setback, Himmler and his coterie of sycophants remained undeterred. Indeed, Himmler's unshakable beliefs led him to sponsor one of the most genuinely bizarre projects in recent history: the hunt for the Holy Grail. In 1933, the German writer and medievalist Otto Rahn published this, Crusade Against the Grail. The book details Rahn's obsession with the Holy Grail and his attempts to find it. Rahn thought the treasure belonged to an older, non-Christian pagan religion. Himmler thought the Holy Grail might serve as some ancient magical superweapon, not unlike Thor's hammer. Himmler read the book and naturally promoted Rahn to his personal staff, made him an officer in the SS, and paid him 1,000 Reichsmarks a month to continue his research. Between 1935 and 1936, Rahn travelled extensively throughout Western Europe in search of the Holy Grail, and sent back top-secret reports to Himmler. At the conclusion of his travels, he published his second book, Lucifer's Court, a heretic's journey in search of the Lightbringers. Part travel blog, part racist pseudo-history, it is debated how much of the book is Rahn's own work, and not some feeble attempt to satisfy Himmler's own demented anti-Semitic prejudices. Regardless, Himmler was not satisfied. The Grail had not been found, and in 1937, Rahn was reassigned to guard duty at Dachau concentration camp. Indeed, Himmler now regarded Rahn as both a professional and moral failure. It had been revealed that Rahn was a homosexual, and in despair, perhaps at the depths to which he himself had sunk in pursuit of the Grail, Otto Rahn signed his own death warrant in 1939 by resigning from the SS. In March, 6 months before the outbreak of the Second World War, Rahn travelled to the Tyrol Mountains in Austria, where his frozen body was later discovered. He had climbed one of the snow-covered slopes to lay down and die. Thanks for listening. If you like this, subscribe and hit the notification bell.